Hey there, folks. This is David Shore for Corruption and Child Protective Services. Number one, I'd like to say thank you for all my loyal listeners. You made me number one. Thank you. Then again, keep moving forward. That is exactly what we have to do. And what I want to say is you really caught on to the fact that Child Protection Services is running not just this country, but countries around the world. I found out that my top two countries are the United States and Australia. And Australia right now, you guys, I see you're having a little bit of a problem there. But then again, when the government tries to be what you see, you had one or two ways of doing it. And you chose an option. Now, in the United States, we're very reactive, more so than ever before. And like politically, you either got Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And personally, I'm going to tell you, the geriatric election part two, and that's what it is, to 80-year-old men who are wealthy, who are bashing each other, who's the worst. Why not, instead of focusing on your opponent, focus on, like, President Joe Biden? Those that follow Joe Biden, what has he done in your life? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Or do you think maybe the country needs to go in the direction it was? With Donald Trump, I mean, I don't know if he's actually saying these things, but about, he's going to, day one, he's going to do this, he's going to do this, going to do this, and it sounds like he's going to be a dictator. There's something I'd like to bring up. I remember every president, it doesn't matter who it was, but when Hillary Clinton was going after Barack Obama, and before Barack Obama, it was Bush and Clinton and all that other. And each president, it said, you're going to get us in World War III. Well, you're going to do it. We're going to be having starvation. There's going to be anarchy, chaos. There's going to be lawlessness. Now, in cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, and other areas, how is it where you're at? According to the media, depending on who you're listening to and watching, it's either things are going real well or it's total anarchy. So I remember, and I said this before, my parents would always tell me, stop and think what you're doing. Stop and think before you speak. Stop and think about what you're about ready to do. Things like that. Everything they would say, they say, stop and think. And we don't do this in America. I don't know in Australia and other countries, but in America, I notice, and I'm driving down the road in my 18-wheeler, and all of a sudden, zoom, comes right in there within inches of my bumper. And it's not an exaggeration. And I wonder, are they thinking or are they on their phone? Yeah, blah, 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 and they're driving and they're not paying attention. And then when an accident eventually happens, because with people like that, and usually 9 times out of 10, it's somebody in a BMW or a Mercedes Benz who's boom, 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 boom. And I've seen it. Now that boom boom, I'm getting notifications, and I do apologize. I've been trying to stop the notifications, but you know how that goes. And people are not paying attention. And now because it's getting closer to an election year, you are seeing like what they call the squad, the View, and everyone is slowly starting to say, you're like this Israel Hamas thing that they're going after the White House. Well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I say, hey, why don't you sit and spin on this? The president has his own advisors. If you want to be an advisor, why didn't you apply for the job? Child Protection Services does run. And let's go with the environment. How many people have heard that natural gas, of all things, natural gas is the way to go? Now I want to show you this. This is a truck that I saw in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now you're going to notice something interesting. I want you to see what he was hooked up to. CNG. Compressed natural gas, I understand. There's the pump there. Now, I have heard that natural gas, it burns cleaner than diesel and better for the environment and lasts longer. Everyone's still arguing over climate change, that we have to go electric. That California, hey, Newsom, you're doing a bang-up job on those debates. And by 2030 or 2035, something like that, no diesel-powered vehicles. No. Nah. We're not going to have it. And yet, you in California know that you switch over to those electric vehicles. Then all of a sudden, recently, like a few months ago, they said, oh, by the way, yeah, you can switch over to the electric vehicles, but you won't be able to charge them. Or if you do charge them, you have a certain amount of time you can charge. So my challenge is this to Elon Musk and to the environmentalists. Let's do this. We get three 18-wheelers. One natural gas, one diesel, and one electric. And we send them like this time of the year. You guys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you know what I'm about ready to say. But also in places like Chicago, New York, especially on the West Coast like Los Angeles. It is backed up. And there are times I've been in traffic for 2 hours or more. And if you're at the end of the day and you're heading back to, like I'm heading back to a terminal, I'm all ready to I'm planning getting it through there. Then once I get done, I do the paperwork, and the next thing I have to do is, I'm going to go home or whatever. And I look down. And it's in the yellow, and, it's saying, you got to recharge soon. And boop, boop, boop. Then all of a sudden it goes into the red. And you're still in traffic. Now, you got the electric, and then you got the diesel, and then you got the natural gas. My theory is they're waiting. Boom! The electric vehicle, like semi-truck, just shuts down. All of its juice is gone. You still got the natural gas and the diesel-powered vehicle where it can make it to a truck stop. Now, the truck stop that the natural gas is fueling up at is a Love's truck stop. You seen them? Nice yellow signs. Maybe you have it. I think it has a red heart in the middle. Anyhow, what it is that you're waiting. And, you go to the same truck stops that the diesel-powered ones go to. And this is the problem. They want to switch to these electric trucks, but truck stops are not set up for them yet. Service plazas might be set up, but there's like 6 or 7. And if you've got 20, that means the other 13 have to wait until those 7 power up, which means it depends on if it takes 30 minutes or if, like they said, or if it takes 8 hours. And in the meantime, if it's a hot day, what do a lot of people do? Crank that AC. And if the APU, or basically power unit, that you drivers can be comfortable with, which I have, then that way you're sitting good, you're keeping comfy until that power outlet. But let's say the driver forgets to pull it out. All of a sudden, instead of 7, you got 6. Or let's say you have to pay for that, and then it doesn't work right. Bam, 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 bam. Which I've seen. I've seen people banging on it. And in other words, this whole thing about the environment, climate change, I've said it before. The climate changes. The climate that is today is not the climate that was yesterday. And that in 2011, Japan had the earthquake and tsunami, shifted the Earth's axis by 6.5 inches. Now, on a global level, you think, well, 6.5 inches, if the axis moves that little, it's not going to do anything. But it affected the jet stream. Scientists were even talking about that at that time. But let's get back to the original thing I was talking about. And it's this. Before we start acting or reacting, engage this before engaging this or this. Because once you put it on here, on the internet, it spreads like wildfire. Teach your kids that when someone's lashing out at them, and especially people of color who are called, despicable names, the best thing to do, is, and I know it sounds like snitching, but just say, look, this child here, this person here called me a bad name. And say, what name is that? And if you're not allowed to say it, then say, well, we're going to have to call your parents. It says, okay. They bring the parents in and then says, use that word. And if the parents know what that word is, say, hey, look, we can't have this. I remember when, and it was recent, we were old transgender thing. And there was a person in a cafe. And the waiter or waitress, looked at the person and said, sir. And the person, instead of getting upset, I'm a ma'am, says, excuse me, I am a ma'am. These are my pronouns. Calmly. Did not react in any way, shape, or form. No, yes, I thought the person looked like a man. But that's not my place to say. Get my point? There's a saying, agree to disagree. If the person wants to live their life and they're over 18 and they want to live their life that way, that's just fine. Kids have to learn boundaries. And the reason they have to learn boundaries is they have to know what they can and cannot do, can and cannot say, according to the Constitution, not according to someone who is saying, well, that's hate speech. What defines hate speech? Just because you don't like what a person says, that does not define hate speech. What it defines is something you don't like. Easy solution. If you don't like it, say, okay, I'm not going to talk to you. See how simple that was? And I know there are people who say, well, they just don't understand. Well, are they really to understand by looking at you? Like my father used to say, you can put lipstick on a pig, it's still going to be a pig. You can't change the outside and say that's what you are. Sometimes we have to sit back and just say, just be grateful that you were born the way you were. You can express yourself in different ways. Hey, look, I'll give you a real good example. There was a group, Culture Club. The lead singer was Boy George. That person dressed. And, at first, my father and even I were asking, is that a man or is that a woman? But the person had talent. Person could sing. Person could perform. I looked at that. I could care less if the person wanted to dress like a Martian and paint himself orange or whatever, or green. And maybe because we don't have to live their lives, and they don't have to live ours. Now let's get on CPS. There are laws, and in my next episode, I will be showing these laws. And these laws are very simple. There's one that indicates that it narrowed. They said it narrows, like for certain things like child molestation, child exploitation, things like that. The big thing is child sex trafficking. But what I noticed is when it came to parents' rights, it was voted down. Or it didn't even go anywhere. So your rights as a parent, they're going this. Fuck you. We know what's best for the kids. Even though, look at you. You're raising your child. You're raising the children the best way you can. State says the best interest of the child or children. It goes all the way back, like I keep repeating, 1601, the Poor Law Act. In jolly old England. They got their own set of problems. They got a guy who has ears that come out to here. And we're supposed to take that guy seriously? Is he Alfred E. Newman? For those that don't know who Alfred E. Newman is, he's the guy on Mad Magazine. His saying is, what, me worry? But CPS has to be destroyed. They have to be obliterated. They have to be taken off the map. Hell, if the Palestinians want to do something right, get rid of CPS. I bet every country in the world that is having problems with their people, if they would just go, what is the issue? So we want, and maybe I'm wrong, but you'd probably answer something like, we'd like to raise our kids our way. We know the school has different children, so leave it to us about teaching about the child's sexuality, about what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. Now the kids are going to say, well, why can't I do whatever I want? And it's do you see what's going on? They do whatever they want without consequences. And I know a lot of you parents don't want to hear this, those that want their kids to decide for themselves. And I'm totally in agreement. But maybe just live their lives and don't worry so much about if they're having thoughts of the same sex or whatever. I'm 58. You know how many times people asked me if I was gay? Because I wasn't around any women. I was just a shy person. Kids need guidance. What they don't need, and I'm going to tell you, they don't need you to decide for them what's right for them. Give them all the information, both sides, and I've said this before. Let your child make the decision. But also tell them, why don't you think about it for a while? Get both sides, and no matter what the person is saying, take the information in. Judge it. Check it. Make sure. Find people that have successfully transitioned and people that wish they hadn't. Take all the information in and then go from there. I don't think that's too difficult to ask. Just like the abortion issue. You give all information. If you can, watch how an abortion is done. Now I've only heard what's done. I haven't seen it. But I'm one of those that believes life begins at conception. Begins when the sperm fertilizes the egg, starts doing its multiplying, dividing, and all that. It also, it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, hi. Talking amongst each other. And eventually that child goes from the embryo to the fetus to a baby. It's not a clump of cells. But when we're thinking, when you stop and think, what is the one thing you want to accomplish in this world? Is it to become an influencer? Is it to be the best at what you do? Ask the questions. What is it you want? When you answer a question, I remember Mrs. King. 2 things that she hated, she wasn't going to allow, and I put it in my life. And one is for an answer. And if there's somebody next to him says, what would that person says? No. Unacceptable. Try again. Think. The next one is, I don't know. Says, I'm not going to accept that. Try again. Think. Thinking is something that we don't do. For if we did, would we, if we actually thought of the decisions we made in our past, would we actually have done that? No. Or if it worked out for you, you said yeah. If it didn't work out, you would say no. You engage this before engaging this, or engaging this, or engaging this. By thinking, a lot of our problems would end. And speaking of thinking, the election is coming up. If you don't want George Bush, yeah, right. He's not even running. I don't think he's even alive. Oh, they'd probably dig him up. Okay, here's our candidate. He looks a little gross. No, it's all makeup. Or he just woke up. And he's got his eyeball falling out. But you've got President Joe Biden and then former President Donald Trump. Those are the two people. They say Biden should not run because of his mental faculties, how he appears to others. You got Donald Trump, who is, I've lost count of how many indictments he has, but chances are he's probably going to skate on all of them. You've seen his history. So what I can say is, if there's someone else, the primary representative, and that's one thing, is the Democratic Party is not having primaries. They're not going to have a primary. So in other words, it's like, here's Joe Biden. Take him or leave him. Aren't there any other candidates like RFK? Or is it just going to be Joe Biden? Is that fair for the Democrats? Is it fair if you're a Democratic voter? Is it fair for you that the only candidate you're going to be able to choose is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the man? And here's Donald Trump. And then you got like Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, Vivek, whatever his last name is. And it's up to you. Do what you want. But think and ask questions. Find questions. Like, if you could, a town hall meeting, and each one of the candidates, including Donald Trump, says, what are you going to do about education? What are you going to do about the border? What are you going to do about the economy? What are you going to do about jobs? Things that are important to you. Forget what they says, well, you can talk about this and this and this. You know what you should do? If they give that, rip after they leave, and then just ask you a question. Oh, sorry, mister. Sorry. We could then try Russia. I said, no. You said I could ask any question. If they do that, then your vote really doesn't count. That they're going to decide who's going to be the next president. Let's make 2024 a different one. Let's end 2023 to force them. To force that, number one, force the Democratic Party to actually have a primary. So you, the people, can decide which candidate you want. Because by not having a debate, not having a primary, that's pretty much saying, screw you. This is the person who's going to be our candidate. So, just know this. Your choices have to be started here before they're put into action. And there's a reason why I'm looking at this. I'm waiting for a load. Now, I'm going to give you an update. I'm still waiting for my 1 week's vacation pay with Holland Freight. Yellow Freight, the bankruptcy is still going on. So, and all you have to do is put Yellow Freight bankruptcy. And you go right there to the dockets and stuff. Can read everything on it. And what I'm waiting for is the judge to say, hey, wait a minute, you didn't give any notice. And they're going to say, well, we had a faltering business. It was on its way down. Well, so the judge just said, well, it was on its way down. Why didn't you start doing layoffs then? Why wait until you closed? You know, if you were laying people off, then closed the doors, that's one thing. But you didn't do anything. They had faltering business, you know. There's 3 of them. And the judge isn't, if he's smart, he's not going to go with any 3. They're prolonging the sale of everything because they figure. My theory is if we wait longer and longer and longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, the eventually the judge will just rule in our favor. Just get out of there. Or, hey, we'll wait, and then 10, 20, 50 years down the road, then we'll finally pay them. After we've exhausted all the money. And then we'll say, well, we don't have the money. How many times have you had to tell your family you lost your job through no fault of your own, and now you have to fight the company to get your final paycheck or get like your vacation pay or something like I am? To end this, I'd like to say, for the people that are fighting against government, continue the fight. Continue to fight for what you believe in. And notice Australia, it might be Ireland. But either way, the people are finally saying, enough is enough. This is my family. We're not going for it. No matter what it is. If it's migrants coming in, yeah. They're already starting something here in South Bend to have inclusion for migrants. And I'll tell you right now, people aren't going to go for that. Because they see places like Chicago and New York, who the people there were lied to by their government officials. And I don't think South Bend's going to want that. They might try another way. But from now on, I'm asking you, my loyal listeners, and those that send this through a text, thank you. And those that are watching that have clicked on this from a text, if this is your first time, thank you. You are helping me. I'm not making any money off of this. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I will say that I'm glad at least I'm in the top 10 and top 5 and all that. And I thank you. So when you fight with this first. Use your mind. Use your head. Because your opponent is going to want you to be reactive and lash out and go after them. And if you find other ways in which to fight them, like let's say a PR, public relations campaign, you go to the media, you do things like this, you protest, you're walking down the street, then all of a sudden, and the one I saw, and I think it's in England, I'm not certain, but it's funny, if you know the video, what they did was they took a fire truck, put a whole bunch of feces in there, and they found members of parliament, and they just sprayed all over their houses. They finally said, "We're tired of your shit. We're giving it back to you." So if you ever have a chance, check this out. And above all, fight for your family. Tell CPS where to go. And hopefully someday when this is all done, we can all meet. I'd really like to meet my followers. Because after all, if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I'd still be here. But it's good to say. And like I said in my next episode, I'm going to find all the laws that are going to have already been passed for 2023 that are going to go into 2024. And some of them you're going to be very surprised at. And some of them you're going to go, I already knew that. This is David Shore for Corruption of Child Protective Services. Keep your head down. Keep moving forward. And keep fighting for your family.